So I wanted to welcome all you guys to our annual movie night. For those of you who are new members and may not have met me yet, I'm Ken Latka, the president and founder. Tonight we're honored to celebrate the work of Nate Adams and Adam Carolla of Chassy Media as we screen two of their award-winning documentaries. First, we're going to watch Winning: The Racing Life of Paul Newman that chronicles actor, producer, and director Paul Newman's love of racing. Then after Intermission, we'll screen The 24-Hour War that chronicles the battle between Ford and Ferrari at the 24 Hours of LeMans in the 1960s. I hope everybody was able to check out Paul Newman's Trans Am Series race car that's on display under the tent outside. Nate's going to give you more information on it, but he just told me that Adam was really kind to swap out the car he was originally going to give us with this one, which just happens to be one of the championship-winning cars that Newman won a championship in. So on behalf of our members, I want to thank him for allowing us to display one of the really, really special cars from his personal collection. Unfortunately, Adam isn't able to be with us tonight, as you may or may not have noticed, because he has to attend a wedding. He really wanted to be here, but this came up. Anyway, he asked us to play a brief video that I'd like to share with all of you now.
Hey everybody, it's Adam Carolla. Sorry I couldn't be with you tonight. As you know, I like cars. I'm so touched and honored that you're going to screen our films, 24-Hour War and Winning: The Racing Life of Paul Newman. Do not worry, my very able-bodied accomplice, I said accomplice, she hasn't really accomplished anything, accomplice, Nate Adams, is going to walk you through both documentaries. Once again, sorry I couldn't be there. Somebody is getting married and I have to go to the marriage. Can you believe what enough with that floor jack! That's why you got to get the aluminum ones.
So as Adam just stated in the video, his accomplice at Chassy Media is his actual partner, Nate Adams, who's one of the talented writers, producers, and directors of the two documentaries we're going to watch this evening. So with that said, it is my absolute pleasure to introduce fellow member Nate Adams of Chassy Media.
All right. Yeah, so as you saw, Adam is actually a car guy. That was filmed at Rennsport last weekend at the Porsche event. We were racing Paul Newman's Porsche 935 that won his class at Le Mans, took a true second in 1979. You will learn about that car in the documentary tonight. The first one we're going to screen is Winning: The Racing Life of Paul Newman. And it's very special to me because I got to spend a lot of time with Paul's brother Arthur, and Paul was I never personally met him, so you know, I just got to meet everyone that he raced with and everyone that he spent time with. When he first started, he was 47 years old, which, you know, if anyone who races cars knows, that's you're past your prime if you're getting in a car at 47. He won his last race when he was 82, and he started to hear all the stories about Paul's driving, and when he first started, he really sucked, and he admitted that he really sucked. But he just kept going to the track, and he just kept practicing because it really meant something to him. And, you know, Adam heard all these stories, and then he said, you know, I want to do a doc on this, and he went to ESPN and said, hey, let's do a 30 for 30, and they was like, nah, it's not good enough story. And so Adam said, all right, I'll pay for a doc, you know. So we worked on it, took us about 9 months, and this is the documentary that we ended up with, is Winning: The Racing Life of Paul Newman.
When you get out to that track, you sit down in that car, whatever it is that's roiling around your head, it just goes right out the window.
You could tell that this was a big, big thing in his life.
He made the movie Winning and kind of fallen in love with racing.
He was 48 years old when he started
The only thing that I ever found any grace in was an automobile.
He wanted to be looked at as a driver, not as an Academy Award winner.
He wasn't so much divided between the two. It was that film would come second to racing.
He was terrible at first.
The studios didn't want him doing that.
I mean, they think, oh, Jesus, what is he doing in a race car? Is he crazy?
The only way that you're ever going to win a race is just to be right on the edge of it all the time.
His whole career looked as though it was going to go down the drain because all he wanted to do was race.
I think everybody wanted him to quit racing except him.
They'll have to strap me down before they keep me out of these things.
There was a tendency to write him off as an actor.
It's very, very difficult with celebrities. They're used to being a winner, and in racing, you got to pay your dues.
You're always competing with yourself. You're trying to bring a little extra to your performance.
Well, I think he liked the camaraderie, the fellowship of that relationship with a fellow driver. It's just nothing like it. It's not anything you can have in Hollywood at all.
He was really a good driver.
It's Newman's 4th national championship.
Pressure to win grew as he did win, and people expected him to win again.
People didn't even think of him as being a movie star racer. He was just a racer.
He is that classic red-blooded American boy.
Paul has a saying I'm sure you've heard where he says, winning isn't everything, it's just all there is.
You see it with the Oscars. People vote. They say him or her. In this, you either cross the finish line first, and it's either him or her.
All right, well, thank you, everybody. Hope you enjoyed it, and, well, if you have any questions, I would be happy to answer them, or we can go eat. Yes, sir?
Can you tell a story about the Joanne Woodward engraved Rolex that they recently auctioned off in Paul's?
Yes, Paul always wore the same Rolex Submariner watch when he raced. If you watch this film, you will see it on his wrist nearly every time he races. In the program, the car, I believe it says it's a 300ZX Turbo from the 80s. It's actually the 1985 GT1 National Championship car. So it's actually the car that Newman won either his third or fourth national championship in. He won them back-to-back years. You got kind of a little more of a special car. That car is... We have 3 of the 4 cars that Paul Newman won national championships in. We have the Triumph from 1976, and we have the 1985 GT1 car and the 1986 GT1 car. Yes, sir?
So how many hours of footage did you start with?
Seemingly a million. The ratio is sometimes like about 100 to 1 hours, 100 hours for an hour. But you end up with 8mm, 16mm, 35mm, 1-inch, digibeta, everything.
Well done.
Well, thank you. Oh, thank you guys.
I was very impressed. That movie, from start to finish, had my attention captured from start to finish. There were so many things I thought I knew about Paul Newman. I really thought I knew, but I clearly didn't know nearly what his life was and who he was and what he did. Very impressive. It was well produced, well written. That was a great experience. Very happy.
Everybody full? Everybody happy? Yeah. All right. The next film is another award-winning documentary from Nate and his team at Chassy. It's called The 24-Hour War, and it chronicles the battle between Ford and Ferrari at the 24 Hours of LeMans in the 1960s. So I think you're going to enjoy the movie. I'd like to invite Nate up. I think he wants to talk a little bit about it.
This film took a long time to get together. The thing I'm very proud of about this film is this is one of the most famous lasting stories in automotive history. Ferrari has never ever participated in anything on this story, except for in this documentary. So it took me a year and a half to get an interview with Piero Ferrari and Mauro Fiorgari and the Italians. It was not easy because they lost. But I mean, what you have to understand is at this time, if you know racing history, they had won 9 out of 10 years ahead of that. I mean, they were unbeatable in the world of racing, in any kind of racing, Formula One or endurance racing. And they were a very small, shop, kind of like Shelby, where they were just guys that won, you made a car in a barn, basically. That's what Ferrari did. And they were the only people in the world who did that. So thank you guys all for coming out. I really appreciate it, and look forward to hearing what you think about the film.
It was the greatest rivalry in the history of racing.
All the Formula One stars, alongside all the sports car heroes, drove in it.
The most dangerous sporting event of any kind. Two titans of the automobile industry waged war at the biggest race in the world. It was the 24 Hours of Le Mans. Death was almost routine at racetracks.
When you got in the car, you had to be ready to die.
But the car that would win is the car that people wanted to buy.
By the mid-1960s, the name of the game at Le Mans had become Beat Ferrari.
Ford had nothing that could compete.
We didn't have that performance that customers wanted.
Henry sees a Ferrari win and says, we need those red cars.
He felt the easiest way to do it was just to buy Ferrari.
Ferrari said no.
That's when he decided, we're going to beat you, and we're going to beat you at your own game in your backyard.
The GT40 is furiously fast.
When they went to bigger engines, all of a sudden, all the drivers were smiling. That's when we started seeing some real speeds.
The cars were running quick, but we had all kinds of engine problems.
With the race only 1/3 through, the Ford challenge had been shattered by Ferrari.
Henry Ford II was pissed.
He made it very clear that we were not going to fail again.
The Ford-Ferrari rivalry, that is the golden age of racing.
There were two great enemies that were going to have some great races.
It has been a great battle, a great fight.
It's really a part of the history of motor racing.
People all over the world were watching this one race. Who was going to win it?
All right. Well, thanks for everybody for sitting through 2 documentaries and not falling completely asleep. Go ahead.
Some people thought that maybe Ford was given an unfair advantage. Did you uncover any of that in your research?
Here's what I've uncovered is that I originally, I think if you look at the DVD extra section of this, there's a whole section on how these guys cheat, because they all cheat. There's a really funny story about the GT40. They put a block. It was I think it was a 4x4 block that all the cars had to clear at Le Mans when they test the cars. And the GT40 couldn't clear it because they tried. So when all the guys walked next to the wheel wells and lifted the car up about an inch so that it would clear that block. They all cheated, just so you know. I mean, it was racing.
How do you get Ferrari to be a part of this? I feel like this is the biggest humiliation of their company.
It really wasn't. Ferrari was the size of Shelby. Ford was the second biggest company in the world. I mean, this is not, they're not even in the same hemisphere of money that can be spent. The number that I got was $150 million that they spent on the GT program, and at that time, and that's more than $1 billion now. it was part of their lineage, and the way that I posed the question to them was, you don't want me to tell your history without you telling it. So I just stayed on them, and they have eventually caved.
What do you think is the key thing to telling a good story?
You have to find the human element to any of these stories of, whether it's Paul Newman or, the Ford Ferrari story. Really, it's a human story of kind of David and Goliath. It can't just be facts and figures and things like that. You have to find human elements that you can grab onto, and if there's humor in it, you should try to find that too. These documentaries would not be made. Adam makes these on his own dime. You don't have very many people who are willing to go out of pocket to do something that they love. So, if you ever get a chance, you should thank Adam for being willing to take the risk to make a product like this. Because he just does it because he loves the stories. And that is the only reason that he does it.